Okay, welcome back to Fast Ship Performance. My name is Tim Davies, and today in this really short video I'm going to talk about three things. The first thing I'm going to talk about is the abuse scandal that hit the Royal Air Force Aerobatics team, the Red Arrow. The second thing I'm going to talk about is my history with the team. Back in 2011 I did an investigation into fatality there, and the last thing I want to leave you with, guys, and it is quite important that we have a look at this and we work out what's going on, is what are we going to do about this across the board of the Royal Air Force, because when you put girls and boys together in high pressure environments, things like this happen. Okay, that was quite intense, wasn't it? Look, let's have a look then. We've got the article here, Untouchable Inside the Red Arrows by Deborah Haynes, Security and Defence Editor. Now, I know Deborah, she's a lovely person, but she does have a bit of a thing about the Red Arrows and the Royal Air Force in general, so she does write these articles on it, and she's not a friend, let's say, of the service. Now, the issue being that there was a documentary that came out last night. It's here, and it was called Untouchable Inside the Red Arrows. See what they've done there? Untouchable. They've used that term because, of course, there was a lot of touching by the pilots into the engineers and the ground crew, well, the female ones anyway, that we know of. So let's pause that now before I get a copyright strike from Sky. So we're going to go through that article then, have a look through it real quick, and what I've done is I've made some notes because I watched the whole documentary last night. It's on YouTube. I'll put the link in the thingies. My notes are here, and I'll just canter through some of those really to stop you necessarily having to go through the whole documentary. You probably know a lot of this already because it's been in the national newspapers, and it is a huge embarrassment for the Royal Air Force, and let's not detract from that whatsoever. This should never have happened. It did happen. The Air Force was warned that it was happening, and of course the one thing I really want to say here, two things actually. The first one is that nobody in the Red Arrows team now has anything to do with what happened with this I'm about to talk about. It's a completely new team. If you want to know who should have been responsible for it, then look for people that were in the team for a very long period of time that should have had their eyes wide open, and they didn't. People that did the same jobs as me. I was OC Standards, Officer Commanding Standards, on the largest fast jet squadron in the Royal Air Force, and I made sure this didn't happen on my squadron, and there were people in the Red Arrows that seemed to have turned a blind eye for some reason. So, but people in the team now have nothing to do with this. I spoke to the team 2 weeks ago, and this has whole changed. Now, one of the things that you may note as well is that Andrew Morrison, the defence, I don't even know who the guy is, to be fair. Who is he? Defence Minister, yeah, these people change roles so quickly, don't they? Told the Defence Committee on Tuesday, this is back in November, that the Red Arrows have been put on notice and they are best described as being in special measures. Like most things, a lot of ministers say at the moment, that is absolute bollocks. They're not on special measures at all. They are getting on with the job that they are designed to do. They've got new guys in the team, and they are flying and practicing for next season. So I just want to bring that to your attention. And the second thing I want to bring that to your attention is that the Royal Air Force, or any military, and especially the Ministry of Defence, will do anything they can to protect the reputation of the service above looking after the people that they should be looking after, okay? And we've seen this many times. I'm not hating on the Royal Air Force. I know the Royal Air Force brief against me. People send me stuff all the time in the Common Core Skills? I can't even remember now. Whatever you do once a year, guys. I know they brief that I'm a subversive. I'm not a subversive. It was actually me that actually said, hang on a second, you can't be discriminatory to these white people because that's called racism, and we can't allow racism. And I've done a lot of videos on that before. We're not doing anything on that kind of stuff and diversity anymore, guys. We're concentrating on aviation. So the article itself is quite a lengthy article, and it's worth having a look at if you're really interested in what is happening here. It does talk about young women that were propositioned by pilots in the team. Some of those pilots were married. A lot of alcohol was going on the night before flying. This is Mike, who hosted two of the girls at his home over Christmas, I think back in 2021. And he said, look, this is all unacceptable, we're going to do something about it, we'll keep them informed. He didn't actually keep them informed, apparently, and this is why the girls got quite upset. They left the Air Force over this, and obviously they went to Sky eventually, and they've told their story. The story isn't, well, I hate to say it, the story isn't anything new, as in it does happen, but not, I don't believe, at the rate that people think it happens. It doesn't. It's, if anything happens, it's significantly less in the military than it does outside the military, with my experiences. The key, really, the notes from the actual program, the girls started to get messages. A couple of girls started to get messages from the pilot saying, hey, what are you doing, you know, are you around, that kind of stuff, but asking to kind of keep it quiet. They comments about their physicality, you know, hey, you look pretty, that kind of stuff. But it's in the documentary, there's more to it. I'm just paraphrasing, and I'm not belittling anyone's experience here, guys. I'm just trying to make a YouTube video that isn't 20 minutes long. Now, The video also mentioned the fact that in the team there had been a female pilot, and there was a female pilot, Kirsty, back in 2011. But what it didn't mention was that there was an affair going on between her and the senior pilot at the time. They later got married, and they're lovely people, and I've got nothing about that. What I'm trying to get at is that in these high performance teams, when you compress boys and girls together, you're going to get some of that going on. I don't think really it makes that clear. There's lots of late night drinking before flying at the hotels. And there was a junior officer who actually had a suicide attempt. Now, she was holding with the team. I remember this happening, and she did make a suicide attempt. There was a lot of inappropriate behaviour with her, apparently. She had spoken to the bosses, but apparently that was... Well, it's not ignored, is it? But it's, again, this reputation thing that the Air Force has. I understand it. I understand why the Air Force has to bury me. I'm just a guy that used to be in the Air Force. It has to bury me. I'm not big in the Air Force, I know that. So, but the reputation over the individual, it does talk about one of the girls going and speaking to an Air Vice Marshal, female Air Vice Marshal, and the Air Vice Marshal saying, I don't really remember it being that thing. And it also talks about the previous boss, Dave Montenegro, who I like quite a lot. He's a really nice guy, actually. And the thing about Dave that really upset me here was... the allegations against Dave, when you read that, when you actually watch the video, where you go through this whole report here, and I'm sure it's in here as well. Let's play some Red Arrow stuff, can we? Because they're cool, aren't they? Dave was having a consensual relationship with a girl with the team. Now, whether that was ill-advised, I would say it probably was. It's like, you know, don't play at home sort of thing, you know what I mean? But either way, there was nothing really about that. I know Dave's been dragged through the press over this, but... I think the woman does actually mention it in the documentary. She says something along the lines of, well, the report said it was a private life matter, and I think it was. There's nothing wrong with that. Of course it was. But I think she says something along the lines of, he should have known better. She does. She says that. The woman that had the relationship with Dave, I think it was a relationship. They had a relationship and then they drifted apart. And she said that Dave should have known better. Now, when you read the article, you watch the documentary, I think one thing does come out. There was abuses happened. There was inappropriate behaviour from the team. It was very juvenile from some of these pilots, and I'm quite surprised that there wasn't anyone within the team. The standards officer, that's what my job was on the squadron, the largest squadron in the Royal Air Force, largest fast jet squadron in Northern Europe. My job was to make sure none of this stuff happened, and it didn't happen. And that's my job as a standards officer. Now, there obviously was a standards officer on the Reds. Look for someone who'd been in the team for many, many years. That's probably the guy that should have known what was going on and didn't. Now, I don't know who that would have been. I know quite a few people in the Reds, but I don't know whose relationship that was. I know there's some good people in the team now, and as I said, there's no one in the team now. This doesn't happen. The team is a completely different team. I think this is what happens when things go wrong, things go unchecked, things are brushed under the carpet, that kind of stuff, and it's not looked at properly by the powers that be, because, as I said, the Air Force wants to protect the reputation of the service more than it wants to protect the individuals, these young women, for example. Now, 2 pilots were removed from the team in 2022 after one of the other pilots went up to the boss and said, I want nothing to do with this, I want out of the team, and he left the team. He's a good man, red blood flowing through his veins, and a student of mine is in my logbook as well. I've seen his name recently. So there was a report, basically a non-statutory inquiry into unacceptable behaviours. That's what you're looking at now. It's a very deep report, heavily redacted, which isn't ideal, of course, but it was an in-house investigation that's been kind of frowned upon. There have been other things, haven't there, through other services where we've seen women abused by men. And here's the thing that I want to talk about a little bit, because we can go into this if you want. There was an alcohol-focused culture. Yeah, fast jet squad, of course there was. There was obviously unacceptable behaviours. There was harassment. Nothing that was illegal. They couldn't find anything illegal that had happened. Of course, it was quite a long report. That's Dave there. Again, consensual relationship with a woman on the squadron. Should he have done it? Probably not, actually, because it's going to get messy. Did it get messy? Yes. Was it ill-advised? Yeah, I would have said no, don't do it, mate. But the truth is, I think he was dragged over the coals on this one, and to be fair, I think if I had Dave bosses, I'd be like, mate, that's a stupid thing to do. What are you doing, mate? You know what I mean? But there's kind of no one there to tell him that. But it was a consensual relationship, and that's one of the problems, and that's what we get, I think, out of the video as well. That I'm going to say it, and you're going to hate me for saying it. If you want a military that reflects society, if you want it to reflect the society it serves, you're going to get this. You're going to get people having relationships in the squadron. He's a good guy, Dave. I like Dave a lot, actually. I'm not too sure he's too fond of me, to be fair. But anyway, so the team back up and flying again. And I would say try and get behind the team if you possibly can. They're not going to be around for too long, maybe a couple of years. We just cannot afford them. It's worth having a read. Misogynistic remarks. You're going to get that in a male-dominated environment, of course. I hate to say it, but you probably will. There'll be some misandry in there being thrown around by the girls as well, just probably it won't, you know, it's not going to be reacted to, is it? It's one of those things happen. It's called banter a lot of the time. You're going to hate me for that as well. Put it in the comments, please, and I'll address that later. Yeah, so people follow to hotel rooms. There was one actually where it said here, people just sort of asking each other out a lot. Now, I think the biggest problem with that is you've got this gradient of rank and authority, and of course that can be abused. That's really what it comes down to. Things can be covered up with bravado and banter. Yeah, they were told to keep their mouth shut. Yeah, I think the problem is Mike Wigson, actually the boss of the Air Force, actually told them to do that. Look, if you keep your mouth shut, we'll look after you. Right, so we got the Reds. Okay, Reds were bad, Reds are better. Can we finish with that now? If the amount paid out by the Ministry of Defence for bullying and harassment claims doubles in 4 years, does it mean that the amount of bullying and harassment has doubled in 4 years? Or does it mean there's more reporting of harassment and bullying in 4 years? That's the kind of thing that we need to think about. I put it to you that there are women in the service, and there are men as well, who will see it in their own interest to put some claims in. How many? Probably a very small amount, to be fair. Probably a very small amount indeed. But it still happens. We can go down here, a lot of money paid out. Again, if you want it to reflect society, this is going to happen. This is another Sky News article. 60 women at the Ministry of Defence complain of widespread toxic and hostile behaviour. Again, a lot of this here, when you read the article from The Guardian, say no more, the bits where groped and touched is obviously horrific. Let's look at these then. A woman who said she was groped at an MOD social function but was advised against complaining. Yeah, bad. Don't do it. Very bad. That's called sexual assault. That you can get people done for that, and you should get people done for that. A woman on overseas posting who said she was touched repeatedly on the lower back and legs by a senior military officer, but the perpetrator went unpunished. Sexual assault. Get them done for that. No one disagrees with that. The claim that a group of military officers kept an Excel spreadsheet. Where's the spreadsheet? Where's the spreadsheet? We need some evidence of this. You can't just say we've got a spreadsheet, so we don't know about that one. That's just conjecture, I think the word is that. Women said before in an opening event, a senior defence... that's... Yeah, I don't really want to... You can read that if you want, but that's pretty horrible. But again, what the hell is he doing? What is... See, some people are just fucking idiots. And some people will talk like this, like the Reds use some terms apparently, and they're just fucking idiots. You're going to get done. If you think bad things, keep them in your head. I'm not being funny. An account of how a military officer propositioned a woman late at night in a corridor. I mean, that's just that is literally a military officer propositioning a woman late at night in a corridor. What's wrong with that? This is the issue that we have sometimes. We're just going to see this breakdown in relationships. Of course we are. I mean, look at Dave. Dave Montenegro had a consensual relationship with someone on the team. Probably shouldn't have done, but consensual relationship. Consensual is the key there. And then the lady says, unfortunately, that he should have known better. It's bollocks. Dave did nothing wrong apart from the fact it was ill-advised. So we're having these issues. Let's have a look. The Navy turns to refer a friend scheme, because what's happening then is a lot of people aren't joining. Now, women aren't joining because they think they're going to be abused, and men aren't joining because they're worried they might be accused of abuse. Do you see the problem now I'm facing here? So the Navy's going to pay money if they manage to get a friend to join. Then the reason is because we're getting these ridiculous articles now. There was this guy, Chris Palmer, whatever. Basically, the firm wanted to hire fewer white men for a job. We're not doing many of these anymore. I just want to tell you the problem, why we see this, guys, why it's happening to the military. And I want your advice in the comments below as well, because this can't continue, surely. This can't continue. Wanting to hire fewer white men for a job is not discrimination. That's based on the fact there's a lot of white men in the UK. If we flip that, of course, and you just put black men in there, wanting to hire fewer black men for a job is not discrimination. It doesn't stand the test, does it? The racial test. So you shouldn't do that. And that's the issue now. I think the majority of people wanting to join the military, of course, are white guys like myself. They're just white men. Oh, let's say heterosexual white men, if that's going to be a factor as well. Although we could probably say heterosexual and gay white men. We're together now, and then you've got the other alphabet people, haven't you? You know what I mean? But so you're joining, or you're trying to join, but you know you're also the primary target for any of this stuff coming up. How does a young white man approach anyone? I say white, black, it doesn't matter, but how does a young man approach a woman now at a bar in the military without getting these accusations labelled at them? Now, obviously, there's nothing that's being criminal. There's no criminal charge here against any of the pilots into their actions against any of the women. And all I'm saying is, if that's the case, then why were they sacked from the Royal Air Force? I'm not here defending them because they're absolute bloody idiots. Of course they are. We all know that. You don't go and abuse your position as a pilot on a squadron to get into bed with young girls who who of course they're going to idolise you. I mean, of course they are. They're going to, oh, you're amazing, you're a red arrow. You don't go and abuse that. So I don't know how you're going to do that. And this is what we're fighting now. This is what we're fighting. We're just fighting all this nonsense, and I think we don't fight it. I think we just go, yeah, fine, I've asked the girl out, what are you going to do about it? Oh, I'm going to sack you. All right, sack me. All right, meanwhile, I'll just write up my court case, get a lawyer involved, and I'll just sue the hell out of you. I was bringing a case against the Royal Air Force. I stopped doing it. I've got it all written up. I just didn't do it because they keep calling me subversive, I think, in all their lectures, which I'm not. And this is what's going to end up doing, guys, and we're going to wrap the video up now. Look, Germany considers bringing back military service. This will happen to us if we're not careful, because of course that's the only thing we can do, because people will not join up voluntarily, this latest generation. Now, whenever something bad comes out from the Air Force, what happens is the next day they put a good news story out, and I'm going to end with this one. It is actually quite lovely. Pam Ayres, of course, the poet, says that, you know, she was in the Royal Air Force and she had a lovely time, and it actually made her, because the Royal Air Force can, if you invest in it, it's a fantastic place to be. And I will always say, look, think about joining the services if you're young and you just think about joining. It's a great place to be. I'm assuming it still is a great place to be. She was a plotter air photographer, whatever that is, but she says she did lots of stuff in the theatre club, everything else, and she had a great time. Let's end this then by saying and reiterating the fact that, of course, the Royal Air Force aerobatics team, the Red Arrows, are not the people that have been involved in that report you saw. They're not the people at all. They're completely different now. They're not the ones inside this documentary. I would say that we should be supporting them. They're not in special measures at all. They're going to have a great season next year. I think they're a fantastic bunch of guys. I know a lot of them. What's happened has happened, and I think the girls have come outside and they've spoken to Sky News, and this is what this documentary is about. And if you want to watch it, by all means go and watch it here. It's called Untouchable Inside the Red Arrows. It's 47 minutes. Doesn't tell you anything I haven't told you here, but by all means, in the comments, if you think I'm wrong, then write down there. Let's recalibrate each other a little bit. I just think that, you know, there are men and women join the military for the right reasons, and you have to be able to go and approach a woman and say, I think you're attractive. Shall we get a drink? Shall we go out for the weekend? Shall we do something? Without women feeling that they're being assaulted or abused. How do you do that? As a young guy, I'd really struggle. I don't know. Assault is different from chatting someone up. But of course, it says here that, you know, someone, I think it said in that document, didn't it? It said down the bottom of the Guardian article we looked at, that a woman was propositioned in a corridor. I don't know what is wrong with that, unless it was done in a really gratuitous way. Obviously, bad things have happened in the team. I'm not defending the team at all. You know me, guys, all right? But what I am saying is, when you put girls and boys together in high pressurized environments, this can happen. And if you want the military to be equal to society, which I do not, by the way, and I've said this before, it should not represent society. The police force should, policing by consent, 50-50, we'll get all that. The military shouldn't, by the way. I don't believe the military should. And people in the comments go, well, I think it's ridiculous. Yeah, crack on, mate. And then put women through parachute training or parachute regiment training. All I'm saying is it's got to be balanced. There's got to be opportunities for all, but there has to be standards. The Red Arrows let down their standards, and that's what happens. When I was on the squadrons, I made sure that we maintained our standards, and it didn't happen on the squadrons I was on. I look forward to your comments, guys, and I wish you a good new year. I will put out another video about alcohol just for the new year to help those guys out that are struggling, and you know, I wish you all the best for that. But until then, Tim Davies, Fast Jet Performance.